Or shot fire, officer down, shot fire, officer down. Got a city officer down, shot fire.
223, be advised, we have a visual on enemy paratroopers in grid Papa uniforms.
Welcome to the Resilient Warrior Nation, a podcast dedicated to inspiring hope and healing for first responders, military veterans, and anyone facing PTSD and trauma. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Resilient Warrior Nation podcast. I'm your host, Mike Morgan. Today I have a very special guest, Sergeant John Mattingly. He is a sergeant with the Louisville Police Department, and he's got an incredible story to tell. John and I had actually met this past summer in Miami. I think it was in July, when he was a keynote speaker, one of two keynote speakers at a mental health seminar. After his presentation, I approached him, and we had a very good conversation, hit it off, and I just think his story is so powerful. As you guys know, I created this podcast because I want to inspire and give hope to other men and women of our armed forces and first responders who are going through it, that there is hope. You are going to hear John's powerful story and all that he went through and how he healed himself. And I hope to do the same to inspire and show hope to others after you hear John's story. It is an incredible one. You guys will realize you are not alone as you're going through it. There are plenty of us out there that have gone through it, and we've healed, and we're going to get to John's story now. So introducing Sergeant John Mattingly. He's a distinguished 21-year veteran of the Louisville Metro Police Department in Kentucky. He's dedicated most of his career to serving in narcotics and violent crime units with the goal of enhancing the quality of life for the citizens of his beloved city. On March 13, 2020, Sergeant Mattingly gained national attention when he sustained injuries during the execution of a search warrant at the residence of Breonna Taylor. The ensuing events, marked by widespread protests and global scrutiny, were further intensified by the subsequent death of George Floyd. The perceived lack of transparency from both the police department and the city allowed unfounded speculation and misinformation to proliferate through various channels, including mainstream and social media, celebrities, and athletes. Sergeant Mattingly seeks to provide a factual account of the incident in his nationally best-selling book, 12 Seconds in the Dark. John has transformed this tragedy into triumph by dedicating himself to traveling the country, where he educates and inspires individuals from all walks of life on the crucial topics of leadership, resiliency, and personal triumph. In addition to his professional endeavors, Sergeant Mattingly has been married to his wife, Nikki, for 18 years and is a dedicated family man with four children and 2 great-grandchildren. Brother, welcome to the podcast. It's an honor to have you here. First of all, I can't even believe you're a grandfather. You do not look like
crazy,
it.
Man. Yeah, I got the third one on the way, man. I'm excited. So
Jesus. Whatever you're doing, brother, sell it. You need to bottle up and sell it, because you do not look like
maybe it's the
about
filter.
to be third time. Yeah, that could be it too, man.
I wake up and look in the mirror some days and go, dang on, who's that old man? Man, I don't recognize him.
Trust me, it's the same. At least you have a nice head of hair.
Yeah,
I have this going for me. Beautiful. So please tell everyone about yourself, where you grew up, a little background on your family, childhood.
Yeah, so I'm the baby of 4 kids. I got 3 older sisters. So I was always well taken care of at home, mama's boy and all that.
Nice.
But I grew up in the inner city, and I always talk about how I think that gave me such an advantage on the police department, because I got to see and experience things, and most of it was from a protective distance away, because my parents, while we grew up in the inner city, they didn't allow me to cohabitate with all the riffraff that was there. It was kind of a sheltered life. I got to go to the park and play ball and, walk the neighborhood and stuff. But at the same time, man, it was a very controlled environment, which I'm thankful for now looking back. There were times growing up, but I was like, man, why can't I do this, or why can't I do that? Everybody's doing it. But
yeah,
now I look and go, man, I'm so thankful those road guards were, put up for me to keep me out of too much trouble. So growing up there, I just saw a lot of violence, saw a lot of drugs going on. And that's kind of what sparked the interest in being a cop. The inner city cops, they were kind of tough guys back then. They were allowed to be, they rolled around. If you did something or said something they disagreed with, you got smacked. I mean, it's just the way it was. And so I looked at that and I always wanted to be cops, play cops and robbers, or military, or do something like that. So I took that step, and I didn't come on the police department until I was actually 27. I already had 3 small kids. And I think that was an advantage for me too, because I had matured through life a little bit. And I had a little more compassion, I think, for people's needs and the stuff that people were going through, because I'd already lived a little bit of life. And again, growing up in that environment, it just really helped. My dad was a pastor, so I had the faith background as well. And I think once you combine all those together, it was just kind of a recipe for success in policing. At least that's the way I viewed it, because I did have most of my years were I don't want to say flawless, because there was a lot of things that happened. I got to do and see a lot of cool stuff, but as far as the controversy, it was very low. So I was grateful for that, and I had a great career, and I would do it all over again if I had to.
Excellent. I think you make a good point about being 27 and having a few years under your belt. I was 25 when I got on with Atlanta, and I think 21 is just a little too young to have men and women getting on. You don't have that life experience. It's a ton of power, even though it doesn't seem like it sometimes. But you're responsible for taking people's freedoms away from them, amongst a multitude of other things. And I don't think the maturity level is there in a lot of cases, unfortunately.
No, so what do they say? The male brain doesn't quit growing or maturing until 25.
I
And
think it's
so
65, but yeah, I think it's 25.
I'm not there yet, but
Yeah, exactly.
supposedly what scientists tell us.
Yeah,
I don't want to get there either, man, because I
exactly.
see so many guys that stick up the rear end, and I'm like, it's not for me. I'd rather enjoy life a little bit. But yeah,
Exactly.
21's pretty young, and there's some guys that are great at it and successful at it, but then you and I saw many come on at 21. We're like, oh man, that guy just got out of a frat house, has never dealt with. Let's just face it. You got a white guy that grew up in a middle class, went to a private school, then went to a college, a university, went to a frat house, did all that stuff. Then they come out and they're thrown in the inner city, in the urban areas, in the ghetto, and they're going, oh, they're as shell shocked as the people that see this new white kid with this close haircut coming in, knowing he's a rookie. So, the respect level is already not there for them, and then they've got to feel like they got to prove something. And when you're 21, man, you know how it is. That testosterone's flowing, and you don't want to be disrespected and all that stuff. So, yeah, a lot of that comes into play, and I think we don't teach enough interpersonal communication skills in the academy. It's simply, here's how to write a report, here's how to lock somebody up, here's how to beat somebody up, and now go do it. And this mouth is the most powerful tool we have. So
Exactly. I always say that.
ignore that a lot.
Mouth and brain are the first two powerful tools you have. If you go to that gun belt, mouth, brain, hands, unfortunately, but if you go to that gun belt, things have deteriorated to, a lot of times to a point that's not good.
Right.
And, I'm going to echo your sentiments, especially in today's day and age. I was an FTO probably like my last 10 years, and there was like a precipitous downfall with the interpersonal skills of men and women coming out of that academy. All these kids are into that phone. And I remember, it's crazy. Yeah. And I remember specifically having kids, I remember the specific domestic, where I'm talking to one of the parties. The other party was, another room, but I could see what was going on. And I had told my rookie, listen, just make small talk. Try to find out what's going on. Don't do anything elaborate. I want to talk to him, get the story from his story, and then, just entertain her, kind of take her attention away from what's going on. And I just see him. He's doing nothing. So afterwards, I'm like, listen, man, you need to learn how to talk to people. If you don't know how to do it, 90% of your job actually is going to be conversational.
Right.
And, a lot of times you could talk yourself out of trouble, but you could also talk yourself into trouble.
Big time.
Either way, you're going to have to learn how to speak to people. And, it's a lost art these days,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we're going to get better with that, because it's just, it's getting worse and worse as far as people communicating with each other.
Well, when I first saw that decline was when they raised those standards. You had to have college degrees to be a cop. And then I thought, man, all these guys that are blue collar workers that have busted their tail, since they were 15, 16, now they're 23, 24, want a police career. They know how to talk to people. They're your carpenters and your plumbers and your construction guys out humping, and they talk to people all the time. Yep. They're used to it. And then when we took that away and said, nope, you have to have these degrees, then you kind of saw things kind of dip. At least I did. That's when I noticed things, because like one of the best guys in my academy class, he was 40 years old when he got on. He had already ran a successful construction business, owned it he still owns it. I mean, he was a multimillionaire when he came through the academy. Didn't have a degree. It took him 10 years to get on. 10 years of denials to get on. This dude's a uber successful guy in the academy. He would, at 40 years old, think of this, 40 years old, in the academy. You know how stressful the academy was. He would
Oh,
get
yeah.
up at 5 in the morning, go pour concrete until it was time to come to the academy, come there, do that, do our PT, do all that, then go back and wrap up his construction sites every single day.
Wow.
It took this guy 10 years to get on. He was a great cop, ended up retiring out of robberies, last like 10 years. So we missed a bunch of people because of that, good people, because of those stupid little rules that we imposed for no reason.
Yeah. I mean, I guess essentially in theory, it makes sense. You want a better educated police officer. You're thinking you're getting a more critical thinker. But listen, I have a master's degree at Boston University, and I'm the first guy in the world to tell you that does not make you smart.
Right.
You know, you could have. I remember my boy Kenny Stapler in Atlanta. We were partners for a while. The craziest Southern accent you ever had, and people would hear him speak at first. And I'm sure intellectually they didn't think he was that smart because he had that crazy twang. That dude was one of the best street cops I've ever worked with in my entire career. He would just size up a scene in like 10, 15 seconds, know exactly what was going on, who the players were. It was, you know the deal. You've worked with unbelievable street cops, and they are just so smart about translating what's going on. You know, you see a guy giving a guy another look, a nod, anything. It's self-preservation, but some guys never get it. Other guys are just unbelievable doing it.
Yeah, well, man, that's common sense and street smarts. You can't teach that.
Nope.
You can get all the head knowledge you want, but applying that to real life, that's night and day. That's just like when you go to these conferences and you hear somebody that's never done the job we've done, but read it in a book, get up, talk about it, and you're going, man, you're just not buying it because you don't feel the passion, you don't feel the truth in it, and that's what we've devolved to, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's true. No, there's no authenticity. There's no genuineness. They've never listen. You can't in this profession talk the talk without having walked the walk. And you know the deal. You get on stage. Anyone that's listening to you knows this guy walked the walk, and they're going to listen to you, and you have instant credibility with them, as opposed to someone else who didn't, and they're never going to be able to build any credibility.
Right.
You know, with the audience. You know, especially with these subjects that I'm into now, PTSD and traumas, and you're talking to guys and you want them to open up, they're not going to do it to someone that's never done it before, man. They have to be with someone on their level. It's got to be a peer that's been there and done it.
Yeah, because what does everybody say? You don't understand me. You don't understand me. That's why we don't talk to our spouses when we came home, right? Because they wouldn't understand what we went through or what we saw that day. Or they don't understand how you could see a dead kid on one scene, a decapitated person on a car wreck that, 3 hours later, and then come home and have dinner with your wife and kids and act all normal because it's just difficult. It was hard. We're good at compartmentalizing, thank God. But at the same time, it takes a little bit away from you every time.
Yeah, it really does. I say sometimes it takes just a little bit of your soul every time, and then you start putting in. I remember I saw a stat where the average civilian sees 2 to 3 critical incidents in their lifetime. Brother, my first night out of the Atlanta Academy, we started 11 p.m. By midnight, I saw my first homicide. 4 a.m., my second homicide. It's 2 in one night. Multiply that by hundreds. I can't even imagine how many critical incidents you and I have been to.
Oh, it's unreal.
Yeah, it really is. And, as we talk later, maybe I'll get into mine. But when I realized I had PTSD after my career concluded, I always mistakenly thought that PTSD was only suffered after you saw the loss of a brother or sister. And when I finally realized that that's what I had, I realized that it's because I was in the most devastatingly intimate moments of so many people's lives. And you try not to absorb that pain, but you walk in and see a man hanging himself, who just hung himself on his oak beam in his kitchen, and the family's outside. How do you not absorb that? My first time I gave CPR to a kid in Atlanta, he just started bacterial meningitis. I have his grandmother, his aunt, and his mom behind me screaming. He's cold to the touch. I know he's dead, but I'm sitting here working him CPR because there's no way I'm sitting here doing nothing while these poor women are going nuts. And, afterwards, we brought him to the hospital. They had to give me a massive dose of antibiotics, and they told me to kind of quarantine for 48 hours. But you know the deal. Had that not been the case, I'm code 7, back in service after you just went through that. Not talking to anyone, no
decompression. You got to make a run where a homeowner's screaming at you because some kid rode through their yard on a bicycle, and you're going, oh my gosh, this is what I'm dealing with. Do you know where it just came from? The parents, what they're dealing with?
Yeah.
But people don't care. Everybody's selfish.
Yeah, it's the truth. In fact, I had one. It's funny you said that. I forgot what the incident was, but my next call was a lady calling about the neighbor's cat peeing in her garden. I'm literally like, ma'am, I just deputized you. What would you do to stop a cat? You call that a dog, it's one thing. What am I supposed to do about a cat peeing in your
Right.
garden? You know,
Yeah.
they're absurd, but that's the job. Makes you great stories.
Yeah.
So, so kind of talk about you get out of the academy. How's your career start? Where are you based?
Man, I went on late watch for my first 5 years, and probably the first three were just like I would have paid to have done it, and then my body started getting tired because by that time I'd hit 30, and kids were getting a little bit older, and trying to sleep during the day and go to court and do all the different stuff you got to do. But yeah, man, my first few years it was like a cops episode every night. We were so busy, and the car chases and the fights and the uses of force and all the fun stuff we did that I was just like, wow, man, I remember though coming to roll call in the mornings, and back then guys would stay on the job 35, 40 years. And I remember coming to roll call, and to get on day work, you had to have at least probably 18, 20 years because there were so many
Wow.
still there. And even on our midwatch, you had to have several years just to get on midwatch unless there just happened to be an opening. And I'd
Okay.
come in, and these guys be sitting around the table and look like they were still hungover from the night before, their big red noses. And they're like, boys, man, this job ain't what it used to be. You have no idea. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, the night I just had? My adrenaline's still going from all the fun stuff we did.
Yeah.
But now looking back, now we're the old guys looking at the young guys going, man, you know how good this job used to be?
Yeah.
So now I get kind of a taste of it, and I wonder, man, what was it really like 30, 40 years ago? Those guys must have been off the chain because we had a good time. Cameras kind of ruined all that, but, we had a good time. Nothing illegal, just fun.
Yeah, it was wild.
A camera that would help some of that, take that ease off that horrible run you just had, joking with your buddies. You can't do that stuff now.
No.
So that kind of hurt things too. But yeah, I did late watch for 5 years, loved it. But then as my body was getting tired, and I wanted to do something different anyway, because we were told in the academy, and this may be everywhere, I don't know, but one guy came in and said, if you can, every 3 to 5 years, do something different, transfer around to keep the motivation going, because you will burn out no matter what you're doing. And so I took that under advice, and at my 5-year mark, I went to a plainclothes unit, which was called a flex unit in a division, and it was 90% narcotic stuff. We were also at the behest of our major, so if we wanted a crime detail or prostitution detail or whatever the thing that was, he was getting the most feedback from downtown.
Yeah, the quality of life stuff.
Yeah, in his division, that's what we were tasked to do, but it was mostly narcotics, and that's where I kind of cut my teeth on that for almost 5 years, about 4.5 years. Then I got promoted, went to late watch again for a year. Couldn't wait to get off of it because number one, it was a bunch of young guys, and I was exhausted. And after having the freedom of plain clothes and being strapped to the radio and late watch, I got to find something different.
That's a different animal.
So I went to a detectives unit as a sergeant. We did everything except homicides and business robberies, and so I was able to see that side of policing as well. With the shirt and tie and doing the reports and presenting at Comstat downtown and all that stuff. After about 1.5 years of that, I thought, man, the whole reason I became a cop is so I wasn't strapped behind some desk. I like moving. I got to move. So I went back to a flex unit for about 6 months, and then they started a violent crime unit because the crime in our city in 2012 was just spiking. I think like it was kind of around the nation, just started going up, creeping up. And so I did that for 3 years, and it was the best time of my career, the hardest I ever worked, most dangerous. I thought if I'm going to get shot or have to kill somebody, it's going to be in this position I'm in now. And there were a lot of close calls. We had some shootings. We had some stuff shot at, different things. But fortunately, that wasn't the one that got me. And so I left that, went to major case narcotics at the end of 2016, and did that until 2020. Right before that, in 2020, I left the narcotics bureau side of it. I was still under narcotics, but went to our parcel interdiction unit from September of 19 until my effective retirement in May of 21.
Okay. So is that like a task force, the parcel interdiction, or you guys do that?
Yes and no. It's a task force, but we ran it. Our department did. Then we brought somebody in from the sheriff's office, somebody in from state police that kind of cooperated with us, because in order to fall under HIDA and then HSI, we had to have a parent, like the person that sponsors, and then a couple of other agencies as well to fall under that category.
Okay.
But, man, it was great because UPS is the hub in Louisville. 3 million parcels a day come through there, and so much dope flows through there. It's unbelievable.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it's like
what's the biggest seizure you guys ever had?
In that unit?
Yeah, so like you give me cocaine, marijuana, like
Oh, we had
how much we
probably, I
talking?
think fentanyl, we had like 30 pounds of fentanyl one time, a couple
Wow.
$100,000. But every week, doesn't matter. We only pulled 20 boxes that we would do warrants on. And because of time frame, because when it came in at like 2:30 in the morning, those were switch planes going out to other cities, and they had to be on the plane by 5:30. So we had
Okay.
a very short period of time to find these boxes, have the dogs hit on them, write the warrants, get them signed by judges, and open them and see if it's anything good. If it wasn't good, you package it back up and send it
Okay.
every single week with those 20 packages, usually about 18 of them being good packages by the time you open them. A 6-foot normal table that you would have out, man, you'd stack that thing to the ceiling every single week with stuff. And it was like
Really?
you got to go through people's stuff in boxes and, open them up, wondering what's in it, and breaking vases, because they would package it in all kinds of stuff, man, molds and electronics and food and everything else, man. They're pretty ingenious, but
Yeah, they're creative, man. It's
yeah,
amazing.
so there were a few things you would go to break, and you're like, man, I hope there's something in here, because I don't know if this is an expensive vase or not, but dog hits on it, all the indicators are hitting where the fake address it's going to and all this stuff, and fortunately we were spot on most of the time.
Ah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So from there, is this where the incident occurs from this detail?
Yeah, so I'd only been in this unit for like 3 months, and they were starting a brand new unit called Place-Based Investigation, which basically was a precision unit that went after one target, and they stayed on that target until they had charges on them.
Okay.
Because this target was a menace to society, constant complaints, revolving door through the justice system, which if they would fix that, you wouldn't have to constantly go
Oh,
back
yeah.
and get these people. But that's the system we're playing right now.
Now,
And
these high level dealers or these guys who just just a thorn in
the
your
ultimate
side?
the ultimate goal is getting the worst of the worst.
Okay.
But this was their very first case, and this guy was kind of a mid to low level dealer. He'd been locked up 6 or 7 times in Jefferson County in the last couple of years prior to this for drugs and guns. The most recent one was in January of 2020. Got caught with 7 guns. I think 4 of them were rifles, 3 pistols, some meth, heroin, fentanyl. So he was just a frequent flyer, just a constant pain. So the city, which was weird, the mayor's office is the one that actually initiated this investigation as their very first one. And I
Okay.
remember when that happened, I'm sitting in the office, and a deputy mayor would come in every Monday along with 3 colonels, and they would get briefed by this new unit on the update on this case. And I'm sitting back thinking, man, I've done 14 years in this type of unit where it's investigative, search warrant, this kind of stuff, and never has the mayor's office every one time had a representative show up.
Right.
Rarely, if ever, has a colonel showed up unless they were the one that you directly answered to.
Yep.
But other than that, that never happens. And now this is happening weekly. So my radar was up going, man, this is just weird. Come to find out later on, we can talk about it. That was kind of the snowball that got this whole incident rolling. That never had any accountability to it because they were doing gentrification, and the houses that the mayor's office put this new unit on to investigate were the 2 houses or 3 houses on that block that they needed to secure the entire block so they could start their building processes.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So
I mean, totally believable, but let me see disgusting actually.
yeah, it's the kind of stuff you see on TV that you're not really sure it really happens until you live it, and you go, "Oh
Yeah.
shoot, this is real stuff, man."
Yeah.
And then he's giving the contracts to family and friends, and it's just a big corrupt system that rotates in the underbelly of cities that most people never have the opportunity to engage with.
Yeah.
So I remember it was early January. They were fairly new under this target, and one of the lead investigators, stops me in the hall and says, "Hey, can you run an address for me and see if there's a package going there or packages going there to Jamarcus Glover?" He gave me the address. I said, "Who's it through?" He said, "Postal." I said, "We don't deal with postal." My department and postal had a big issue a couple of years prior to me getting there, and so we no longer work together. Those ties were cut.
Okay.
So I said, "I don't work with postal. I don't even know who they are, but I can give you the department that does." There's a Shively Police Department. It's on the outskirts of our city, one of the small cities inside our incorporated city.
Right.
And I said, "Here's their info." I texted the guy and I said, "Hey, do you have anything at this address with this name?" He texted me back and said, we just did a Glover, because Jamarcus Glover was the target. He said it was a J Glover. I can't remember the first name. We just pulled a package on one of those. He said, "But I'll run the address and let you know." I said, "Cool." I exchanged his information and the detective's information. because I'm busy. I don't have time to play, intermediate for these guys.
Yeah.
And so I saw these guys out at UPS a couple of weeks later from Shively, because one of them worked out there part-time. And I said, hey, did you ever get that squared away, figuring out packages? He said, yeah, it's not the same Glover. It's a J Glover, but not the same Glover. I talked to them. We realized it's not the same. I said, cool, no problem. I see Josh, the lead detective, the next morning in the office. And I say, hey, Josh, just letting you know, in case you didn't hear, it's not the same Glover. He said, yeah, Kelly Goodlett, who was the other detective on the case with him, helping him write the warrants. He said, yeah, she told me that they were talking about it and they realized it was a different Glover. He said, now I've got to write all these warrants or do a rip and reversal, which a rip and reversal, for people who aren't cops don't know, is you simply deliver the package knowing it's dirty, and you have a device in there that once it's open, it alerts the police, and then they could execute the warrant on the house, or they could simply pull you off, as you're going to pull the package off the porch or whatever.
Okay.
Now, again, I was like, man, sorry, man, good luck. Didn't think another thing about it, right? Just out of my head, poof. Come March, we get an email from their boss. And again, this is an all new unit. Only one person in this unit has any real investigative experience. And even their experience wasn't long-term stuff. It was kind of that hit and run stuff where you do one, you move on. You do one, you move on. You don't build cases. So they're a pretty inexperienced unit. Even the sergeant, he had just been promoted. And he puts this email out and says, hey, we've got a manpower intensive detail that we need bodies on. We need volunteers. It's on overtime. It's been approved. I looked at my calendar, looked at the overtime, went, that's for me. Sounds easy. I looked at the addresses, and there was 4 of them down in the ghetto. And I said, man, I worked my whole career in the ghetto. I'll take this one that's 10 miles away in an apartment, because apartments are just cleaner. In theory, they're cleaner, they're easier to get in and out than a trap house.
Yeah.
So I said, I'll take the apartment. And I got the okay on that and didn't think anything of it. Didn't realize that was the apartment that I had requested information on, 2.5 months prior.
Okay.
And so we get there that night for the brief, and we go through it. And now it's Thursday, March 12th, but it's leading into Friday the 13th. It's a full moon out. It's raining. Things just going bad. I come out, I got flat tires in my car. All these things. I'm transferring junk out of my car in the rain. I forget my tourniquet.
Floral tires?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yeah. I had 2
Just
flat tires.
Call in and split right down and go home.
Yeah. All this stuff going on. I should have went, this is somebody telling me to bail on this thing.
Yeah.
But you can't do it. You got your guys depending on you, whatever. So I'm like, it's fine. We'll figure it out. That's what we do, right? We just adapt and adjust.
Absolutely.
I got a different car, threw all my stuff in. Again, forgot my tourniquet. I hadn't used it in 20 years. So when I get on scene and realize I'd taken out my vest, I'm like, haven't used it. I'll be all right. Nothing's going to happen to me, right? That's what we think. I'm
unbelievable the way it works.
So we get there and we eventually go to the apartment. SWAT's finally like, man, we're on the move. Let's go. Because they want to do them all simultaneously. So we get to the apartment and I'm banging on the door. First, I'm just knocking on the door. And they said, initially it was signed as a no-knock. Because one of the big things you hear, no-knock warrants are bad. No-knock warrants, no-knock warrants. I wish we had served it as a no-knock, and I wouldn't even know you, because this would have went off probably very smoothly and quickly and under the radar like a lot of these do.
Yeah.
Not only did we not do it as a no-knock, we didn't even do it as your normal knock and announce, which is about 10 seconds you give people to come to the door. They said give it longer because she's a heavy-set black female, and we want her to get on the team, basically. We want her to rat on these guys, because this was a RICO case going on with several guys. They knew she was basically the money person or the document person, so they weren't really interested in putting her in prison, right? They just wanted her information.
Just work her.
Yeah, just work her. That's what we do. We work up the ladder.
Yep.
So we get there and I knock on the door. She doesn't answer. I knock again. She doesn't answer. So at that point, I start banging. Open hand, boom, boom, boom. Police search warrant, come to the door. The first time I did that, a guy popped out from upstairs. He starts arguing with one of my guys, and I can't see him because I'm under the porch. It's a 2-story apartment. There's 4 on the bottom, 4 on the top. It's got a metal staircase running up the side, right where the door that we're at. So he's arguing with them upstairs, but I can't see him, but I can hear it. I can hear the argument going on. So fortunately, that happened because he's the only one that said, I heard him knock and announce. Kenneth Walker, the guy inside who shot me, said, I heard him knocking. I just couldn't hear what they were saying, so we thought we were getting broken into and robbed. And I'm like, anybody that's robbing you ain't yelling and
exactly.
Please come to the door because we want to rob you.
So robbing crews don't just kick that door down, man. I mean, they just kick the door down, they don't announce.
So after a minute of banging and yelling police search warrant at this door, my lieutenant finally gives me the nod to go ahead. And the breacher hits the door, and at the third hit, it pops open. I'm able to see everything in the living room before anybody steps in that fatal funnel in that doorway. You know, I'm able to clear the right side of the room. And as soon as I turn that corner to go through the door, before I even get through the door, I see two people down this long, dark hallway. One's taller than the other. They're overlapping. I couldn't tell who was in front, who was in back, but I could tell they were overlapping one another.
Okay.
And as soon as my gun light gets around and I see them and my brain's going, oh, something's wrong, it's too late. I see the tip of his gun. It goes off. It strikes me in my left upper thigh. Return 4 shots as he's diving out of the way, leaving Breonna in the hallway.
Yep.
And then I get to safety and realize, man, this is more than just a bleed. It's a femoral artery. It's my femoral. So I put my hand down. It's just full of blood. And I remember telling Mike across from me as Miles had stepped up kind of over me and shooting in the doorway. I yelled at him and said, man, I've been shot in my femoral. And so I knew I had to get action quick. And it dawned on me, I don't have a tourniquet.
Yeah.
One time in my career,
Unbelievable.
I don't have it is the time I need it. It's like it was Murphy's Law, man. It was there that night. It was happening, man.
Yep.
And so I hobble out and I get to the parking lot. And the whole way out, I'm yelling at those guys that had kind of left the breezeway and went out while Miles was shooting over me. And I'm like, I need a tourniquet. I need a tourniquet. And I'm hobbling out and I step off the curb and I go down. My leg buckles. And so my lieutenant kind of pulls me on the other side of the car. A guy pops out with a tourniquet, puts it on, and getting shot hurt. But that tourniquet was that was a mother. That thing hurt. When
Yeah,
I cranked
I've
that
never
thing
had the
down,
pleasure, but
the leg's gonna explode. That's what it
it
feels
does not
like.
look fun. Can I ask you a question? What does it feel like? I know your adrenaline's rolling, but what does it feel like when you get shot? Is it hot? Can you even distinguish, or it's just pain?
It was a little bit of pain with some heat, but I guarantee you that pain's no more than if you blow your knee out, sprain your ankle. I was fortunate it didn't hit a bone. My wallet kind of deflected the bullet just enough, changed the trajectory just enough where it didn't blow my femur out, but it still ripped through the artery.
Right.
The doctor said that was still a good thing because had it blown that femur, that would have splintered off and it probably would have drawn up into my pelvis, and the tourniquet's not going to help that. So blessed there that it just did that. But yeah, the pain is where it hurt was not where I got shot. It hurt in my groin area and lower back because it ripped through those nerves. And so that's what hurt. And that's why when I was on my back, I kept going, man, I think I only got shot once because I only remember hearing one. I said, but either that bullet's lodged up in me. I kept telling him either it's lodged up in me or there's another round. So I kept cutting the pants higher and higher, trying to find where that pain was in my groin to make sure wasn't another hole. But it's I don't want to downplay it because maybe it was just I was fortunate. I don't know, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. If that makes sense. But against your leg.
No, definitely. Adrenaline's pumping too. So obviously.
And fortunately, man, you see people freak out and stuff. Fortunately, God kept my brain calm, and I was able to retain everything that was going on at the moment, and still give instructions on do this, do that.
It's amazing you see that because it's either the way you react or they are screaming lunatics. Yeah. But to see someone who just got shot like yourself, just kind of, I don't want to say relaxed, but you're in control of your emotions. You're pretty lucid. It's definitely impressive, and it definitely helps the guys around you. Not that you're conscious about that, but
I always tell my
amazing.
kids growing up, even like I was teaching them to swim and stuff, you throw them in and go, don't panic. If you panic, you die. If you panic, you die. I've just hammered that in them because we had to do it on the street, right? Because there's many times that your brain wanted to go haywire and in crazy situations, you got to go, all right, take it down, take a step back. You're fine. Everything's fine.
Yep.
Let's work through this problem. So that's kind of where we were there. They got me in the ambulance, got me down to the hospital, and it was a 5-hour surgery, 8-inch incision, 4 inches of the femoral artery was replaced with 4 inches of a vein in my leg, and I'm back at it.
Excellent. Thank God.
Yeah.
So as you're coming out of surgery now, unbeknownst to you, there's a million things going on. When do you first find out the extent of what happened? Did they tell you immediately?
Well, my wife comes in. My wife's the first one I saw when she came in, and I asked her, I said, was anybody else hurt? I knew my guys were good because when I'm on my back, I'm taking mental account. This person's here, this person's here. So I know all my guys were good. But I had no idea what happened on the inside of that apartment. Because when I left, Kenneth Walker still hadn't come out. So go back to that real quick. Here's a guy who's saying he thought he was getting broke into, and for a minute, he had time to get up, get dressed, get a gun, ask her to come to the hall with me and sit there and wait. And then after he shoots, he dives out of the way and leaves her in the hall. She tries to leave the hall and follow him into the room. That's when she got struck, unfortunately. And then when he comes out finally, 17 minutes later, after the shooting, he blames her for shooting, and it's all on tape. He said, no, she shot. She was scared. But in the meantime, on the national news, you always hear that 911 call tape where he's going, oh, my girlfriend's inside. Somebody just broke in. I don't know who it was and killed her. Well, that phone call came 6.5 minutes after the shooting. The police outside, lights and sirens. He knew it was the police. And he
never called 911 in the interim, right?
No. He called his mom first. Then he called 911. Then he called Breonna's mom. And then 17 minutes later, he comes out. So 6.5 minutes after the shooting is when he finally called 911 saying he don't know who it was. When the police are outside, lights and sirens and calling him out and doing all the stuff that police do. So he's just a liar and a coward.
Yeah.
That's just his MO.
And 6.5 minutes, to those of you who've never been in a situation like that, is a lifetime to not get on the phone and call 911, especially if you saw that your girlfriend was hit.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of lies, like in the interviews, like I held her in my arms after she was shot and took her to the ground, and he had no blood on him. There were holes in the walls where he was standing. In the second day in, he's calling these girls, having phone sex with them on the jail calls. And then he's saying, getting on TV going, we were getting married, loving my life, we were having a baby, all this just bull that they're just making it so emotional because they know the more emotional they put out in the media, the more people react. And the more reaction that people have, the less their logic kicks in, and they just believe whatever they hear. And,
absolutely.
Unfortunately, my department just didn't get out in front of it. They've still never addressed it.
Why? I don't understand that to this day.
Well, I don't either. Our mayor at the time was, a super progressive liberal that couldn't stand the police, and he made that clear. And so he ran the narrative because, again, all this stuff started because of him. So he had to take the pressure off him and put the limelight on the police at the time. And I think that's what he did to keep the heat off of him. Because as soon as it got exposed that he was doing this for gentrification, they amended the lawsuit, the civil suit, exposing this. And 2 days later, he settled for $12 million with her family before any criminal charges, before anything had taken place. As soon as he did, the media dropped the gentrification stuff. You heard about it for 2 days and it disappeared. You never heard it again.
Did they really?
Just amazing how they flipped the script again to put the blame on the police to take the heat off the real criminals.
It is. It's amazing. The collusion that goes on.
Yeah.
And we are nothing to them. Just literally numbers. That's it. Pawns.
Yeah. So it was just amazing just seeing all this stuff unplay before your eyes and not having a voice, not being able to push back against it. That was the frustrating part. Because you talk about the PTSD angle of it. I've never had the dreams waking up in the middle of the night from the shooting or hear shots and I jump or, anything like that. I don't have the PTSD stuff. What affected me the most was the backstabbing and the betrayal by the department and city. That affected me because here I had for 20 years prior to this given them everything. Yeah. Probably too much, like most cops do. Most dedicated cops. They give way too much and they neglect home life. They neglect health. They neglect all these things to do their job, to do it the best they can. And then to have those very people that you help make look good or that you help, succeed, turn around and stab you in the back. That was tough.
Yeah, I used to tell the young men and women when I would train them, you must be careful with this job because you could be on the king of the hill one day. One mistake, man, it will bury you. So be careful when you fall in love with this job because it'll break your heart and worse. So as you're going through this now, you're in the hospital. How are you getting treated by like the upper echelon of your police department?
Well, let me go back to the one thing because I forgot to finish the very first question you asked me. So my wife comes in and I say, was anybody else injured? And she goes, yeah, there was a female that got shot and died. And I remember my gut just sinking going, oh, crap. Because I knew a female didn't shoot me. I knew it was the tall figure, assuming that was the male. The tall figure on the right is the one that I saw had the gun. And my biggest fear in my career has never been getting injured or killed. It was always hurting somebody that didn't deserve it, right?
Mine too.
Our job is to protect and serve, not to just take law into our own hands and be hippie vigilante style. So my fear was always hurting somebody that didn't deserve it, and now that worst fear has come true. Now later on, I found out my bullet didn't kill her. Thank God. I think I only hit her in the left either arm or leg as she was moving over, but none of mine struck her in the main areas that caused her life to be taken from us. But
Okay.
but yeah, that feeling was horrible. That was
Yeah.
like the life was just sucked out of me at that moment, and I felt bad. But
Of course.
I didn't put her in that position. I've got to ultimately look at it like that.
Yep.
I didn't force her boyfriend to shoot. So sometimes these are just part of the things that happen in this game.
Yeah. It's the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. I hate to say it like that, but literally, what could you have done, if you go back and change things, and not change his behavior, you really couldn't have changed anything.
Yeah. The only thing
You
would
know?
have been if I'd have gotten the shot off quick enough to shoot him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the reality of it. And that's probably the one thing that I don't want to say haunts me, but that comes up every once in a while thinking, man, had I just got that a millimeter shot off a millimeter sooner, but that action reaction thing's a real thing. It's just
yeah.
physiological. There's nothing you can do about it. And I try to convince myself that because it felt like in my mind it felt like as soon as he shot, I got a shot off. It was like bang, bang. That's what it felt like. But obviously there was enough time for him to maneuver his body just enough to avoid that. But you talk about upper command. So my chief, everybody, the first night everybody shows up at the hospital.
Yeah.
I barely remember any of that because I was so high at that point. But the next day the chief comes in and he talks to me for about an hour and a half. And I tell him the whole story. So he knows everything that you've heard, right? He knows from the start to the finish how this thing went down. He's got the insider knowledge from the guy who was there that got shot.
Yeah.
And so I think, okay, as long as I tell him this, I know that's not the right thing to do because that can be used against you if you did something wrong. If you misstep and say the wrong thing, then it's like, oh, who'd you lie to? But fortunately, like I said, this thing was like recorded in my brain. So what I told him then is the same thing I'm telling you now. And I did that in hopes of, man, because I knew also when she told me a female died, I remember my other thought was, well, this ain't going to be good. A white cop just killed an unarmed black female. And in today's society, ever since that Michael Brown crap, this is never going to end well for me, ever.
Oh, yeah.
But then I had a little bit of hope because the coronavirus was so huge at the time. March 13th, that day is the day that the president shut everything down for 2 weeks to slow the spread. So I thought, all they're talking about on TV is coronavirus, toilet paper, hand sanitizer, deaths.
Yeah.
They're not talking about police and other things. So I thought, maybe we'll skate through this. Maybe we'll get to the other side and this kind of be forgotten. Something else will happen. There's always the next thing, right?
Absolutely.
And but unfortunately,
And there was.
the next thing was Ahmaud Arbery, and the next thing was George Floyd. And they conflated all three of those events into one as these raging white lunatics out here hunting down black people, killing them.
Yeah.
And my name was thrown in that. And I'm sitting back going, what? No, I'm not racist. I'm just out here trying to get drugs off the street that are killing 100,000 people a year.
Yeah.
So I thought for sure at that point, though, that somebody from the department would stand up and go, hold on, no, you're saying, because now we had LeBron James, Oprah, Kamala Harris, Ben Crump, Sean King, all these people on their national platforms going, they had the wrong house. They weren't even at the right residence. They killed this poor girl laying in bed. And I'm back on a no-knock warrant. And I'm back going, no, none of that's true. We knocked for a minute. She was in the hallway. It was the correct address.
Yeah.
And I remember calling down the headquarters going, hey, can you put this stuff out? At least show the cover sheet of the warrant to show we had the right address, because now we're looking like total screw-ups and horrible cops.
Yep.
And you're doing nothing to combat it. And their answer to me was, we can't do it because we don't want to set precedent for future cases. And I'm going, wait a minute, ho. Our body cam policy is, if you're involved in a critical incident, we release the camera, the footage within 24 hours. So you mean to tell me if I'd had a body camera on, you release all this? But since I didn't have that, we weren't issued those. Since we didn't have that, you can't say anything to defend us. And that's just the way it kind of went.
It's unbelievable. And not for nothing, but precedent's already been set. So no matter what happens, good or bad for you guys, the truth's going to come out. And I'm saying in this incident and future incidents. So to say that that's precedent setting, and in case in the future, if you guys screwed up, you're not going to do it that way, is ridiculous.
Oh, it's horrible.
Especially with, today's day and age. cameras everywhere. Typically people know what happened 5 minutes after it went down.
Right.
And the one thing I don't understand is maybe the mayor wants to take the limelight or keep it on you guys, keep it off of him. I can't believe the chief didn't want to correct what was going on, because did he ultimately lose his job over this also?
Yeah, he did. Not. It was over another incident related to the protest with this that had just kicked off. But man, our chief, he was one of those guys. He's like your uncle who's nice to talk to, but totally not good for the job. He was weak. He was a politician. He did everything the mayor said. Our mayor's office runs the department. Okay. Or it did. We got a new mayor now, new chief. I don't know. I'm not involved in it. I'm not disparaging them. I don't know.
Right.
But at the time, he was our mayor for 12 years. He brought in this chief for I think 7 or 8 of those years. So he had total domination and control over the police department. So anything he said went, and this chief knew he'd lose his job if he didn't. A few years prior, we had a scandal in our department with our Explorer program where some of the guys who had been Explorers coming up were now kind of running the Explorer program or part of it. And then they were diddling with 14 and 15-year-old kids, messing with them, using their platform to build trust, get these kids
groom them,
manipulate them, groom them. And they think it was happening to those guys previously before they became cops, as they came up through the ranks by those guys, because the two guys that ran it prior to them were kind of, those guys you look at and normal guys like you and me go, something's off with that dude. I can just tell something's not quite right. But again, they hadn't been accused of anything, so you think, well, maybe he's just a weirdo. I don't know. So this mayor and chief, this was brought to their attention. They used a lieutenant who went to church with one of these kids' parents, to try to talk to him at church and get him not to press charges, because they didn't want the department to look bad. They did all these things to try to cover this up. They kept it from the media, surprisingly, I don't know how, for about a year before somebody finally leaked it to them. And so they were doing all this cover up. They were letting these cops continue to work. That's how bad this was. Those two should have been in prison. Those two should have been in prison for that, the mayor and the chief.
Oh yeah.
So this is just the standard that was going on. The DOJ wants to come in and say, "Oh, the department's corrupt. We got to take over." They want to do that deal there in Louisville. And I'm thinking, no, your rotten apples are at the top, man. Not the guys busting their butt on the beat. Not those guys are hard working, risking their lives for people that hate them. Why are you going after them? Go after the people who cause these issues. So I think they had kind of dirt on each other. And so even if he wanted to fire him at one point, he couldn't. And if, it was one of those deals. Yeah. And you could see it play out in real life. And it was kind of like, man, this is gross.
Yeah, it really is. Truly is. I mean, in so many respects. So, yeah, please talk as this evolves and you're getting out of the hospital now. Just kind of tell us what's going on with the case.
Yeah, so, man, I go home. I'm rehabbing as hard as I can because I want to get back. I just want to get back to work. And then in late April, we get the first death threats from an informant in our narcotics division. So Breonna's mom did not raise her. Her dad's in prison her whole life. So her grandma raised her, but her grandma recently died. I guess mom was trying to get back in her life. I'm not really sure. But mom has been part of this motorcycle club in Louisville. It's a black motorcycle club, very dangerous, known for drugs, guns, violence, just dirty, bunch of criminals.
Right.
And so this woman that the national media touts around, that they're bringing up on Capitol Hill, letting her talk to senators and congressmen and stuff, as this poor victimized woman, is part of the problem of society. And now she's touted as this godmother. I don't know. It's just really bizarre. So we get an informant to one of our detectives in the office that says, "Hey, tell Mattingly to watch out. They just put a hit out on their family. And they put a hit out on these other cops, and this is how they're going to do it. And they name different ways they're going to do it. And it's from this other motorcycle club." And I thought, man, I got that forwarded to me. And so my radar was up a little bit. But then I thought, well, informants, I've dealt with them so long. They're usually not right, spot on. Is this guy just kind of a hanger-oner at the club, hearing rumors, thinking, well, this could happen? Or how street talk is. People say a lot of stuff. Heck, when you're taking people to jail, the crap they tell you in your back seat, they're going to get out and rape your family and kill your kids. And
yeah,
we hear it all the time. So I don't want to say you get used to it or numb to it, but at the same time, it doesn't freak you out like it would the normal person. So I heard that. We put safeguards in place, but then we didn't hear anything else for a few weeks. And then the George Floyd incident happened and all hell broke loose. Right before that, we had gotten doxxed, my entire family.
Really?
Mom, dad, sisters, kids, everybody just got boom, like overnight. It was a coordinated event because it wasn't just one or two people. It was a ton of people. My phone started blowing up. Just everything got leaked. So that happened. And then George Floyd happened, and our city, we had 7 people shot the first night in the riots in Louisville.
Damn.
So it just was off the chain like Minneapolis and everywhere else, right?
Yep.
Well, on the 30th, I think that was the 27th that those riots started. On the 31st, I'm in my garage at night. We just moved in a new house, and I get a call from a guy over at the FBI saying, "Hey, you got to find somewhere for you and your family to go." The original person who brought this complaint to us, we brought them in and talked to them, but now we've got a new informant that actually is a federal informant on an active OSADEF case on this bike club. They've been buying stolen guns from this bike club that Breonna's mom's a part of. And this informant was supposedly there the night that Sin City, the motorcycle club from Chicago, they're nationwide, but the group from Chicago came in. They gave car descriptions, people descriptions, and details on how they were going to take the hit out on us. And she said money was exchanged. So now you got 2 separate informants that don't know each other, don't know their informants, giving the same story, one with more details and with actually tied into the club via the federal government, right? So now this thing has legs to it, and it's real, because this is the 31st on a Sunday. On Friday, the June 5th, was Breonna's supposed to be her 26th birthday, and they had this huge balloon release scheduled with thousands of people. And the words they used were, the informant said they want something more to celebrate than just her birthday. They want the death of one of the cops, or if they can't get to them, one of their family members.
Wow.
So the FBI had this case, and I thought, well, good, the FBI's got it, right? It's the foremost elite law enforcement agency in the nation. They've got unlimited resources. If anybody has this case that I want investigating against my family, I want it to be them.
Yeah, you would think.
I wasn't privy at this point. I don't think any of us were to how politically corrupt that agency has gotten, especially at the top. I'm not talking about a lot of your agents on the ground. A lot of them are good guys and gals. I'm not bashing them. I'm talking about once you start getting seniority, it becomes so political that it's just it's horrible. And to make it short, 10 days into this, I get a call after I'd received a few calls, update me along the way saying something's not right, saying this case had been permanently closed. And the agents were pissed off because they couldn't work it, but they were told they could no longer work the case because the optics looked bad going after a national victim's mother.
Wow.
I'm like, we're worried about optics over lives now? Ooh. We're worried about drug dealers and thugs over cops who've invested. You got 3 guys with a total of about 55 years experience here that have done this, and you're just going to throw them aside and their families because you don't want to offend somebody?
Yeah.
But that's where we were in 2020. I mean, heck, we're still there now, but we're not quite as bad, I don't think.
That's incredible. Incredible.
Yeah. So I was getting the runaround. My lawyers got lied to by the U.S. attorneys, by the DOJ, by the FBI. Oh, no, it's going. Then finally, when we press, we got a 2-sentence release saying the case is closed, no charges expected. That was the only response we got from the federal government. They would not meet with us. We requested meetings. It was just so bizarre during that time frame. I mean, it was like we were in some kind of horrible movie or dream that I couldn't wake up from. Everything
it's like this huge collusion between everyone.
Oh, it was bad. I mean, it was.
Did you guys consider going to the media at all?
Oh yeah, we tried. Or when I could finally speak, that was the first thing I did, because I had to contemplate. Okay, do I ruffle feathers and put this story out, or do in hopes that I'm letting her family know, hey, we know, the police know, now the world knows, or do I just sit on it and hope it goes away? And I was like, man, I've never been a sit back guy. I'm going to be proactive. And so that was the decision I made. And the funny thing is, because Amy Hess, she was our public safety director. She retired from the FBI in 2019 as the highest ranking female official ever in the FBI. She worked in D.C. under Jim Comey. Okay, so that tells you where she was at. When she retired, she came to Louisville as our public safety director. Come to find out, she's best friends with the SAC, who is the main boss in Louisville over the FBI, and the assistant SAC. So they would go to lunch together a couple times a week, talk on the phone every day from people inside that know them both.
Yep.
And So now she's the mayor's right-hand person when it comes to public safety. She's got connections to the FBI. The mayor's trying to take the spotlight off him, put it on us. My theory is he went to her and said, hey, can you make this investigation go away? Because I'm getting ready to look like an idiot on Front Street, nationwide. And I think she went to this guy and said, hey, it's going to mess your career up if you go after this in this political environment, going after this black female over a white cop. You know, I just think it's going to look bad, or ask for a favor. I don't know which one. I put those theories out in my book. I put them out on national TV. And the funny thing is that guy is now in her old position in D.C. So,
oh, really?
Oh, yeah. You know, you scratch my back, I scratch yours.
Yep.
So I'm not the brightest guy in the world, but I can put a puzzle together and the pieces kind of fit.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is I put this out there so many times on so many platforms that have had, some of them have large reaches, and I've never gotten pushback from the federal government. Never once.
Yeah.
And normally they come in, they're like, hey, cut that. That's not true.
Oh, yeah.
Never once. And so usually when that happens, there's some truth to it. And I'll never know the full truth. Just like with the phone deal with Kenneth Walker, you know, we believe he called. There were 4 phones in the house that night, one on him, one on Breonna, one on each nightstand. All had active service. The FBI took the 2 that were on the nightstand and won't release any data that's on them, won't release any calls that was from them. The guy who just went through trial, his attorneys tried again in trial to get those phones as evidence because it could be exculpatory evidence.
Yeah.
And the judge shot it down because the FBI said, no, we're not going to give it to you.
Wow.
And so we believe, because of an officer who grew up with him, who went to middle school and high school with him, is still friends with him to this day, knows his mom well. He lived in the apartment complex where Breonna lived, and Kenneth Walker. And so he said he would say hi to Kenneth when they'd see him. They would talk. He came out after the shooting that night, and because Kenneth called his mom, she did what any mom would do, and she showed up on scene. Well, when she gets there, she goes straight to this guy because she knows him. I would too. She goes to this officer and goes, her statement, according to him, under oath, is, I don't know what's going on. Kenny called and said, they're at the door. At the door. She said, I said, who's at the door, baby? He said, it's the police. I've got to go, and hung up. So was that made on one of those 2 phones that were on the nightstand? Did he really know it was the police at the door? And then after the shooting, again, called his mom, talked to her for 2 minutes and 41 seconds, called 911, called Breonna's mom, and at some point in that, there was a 3-way with his mom and Breonna. So at that point, is he formulating a plan?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. 17 minutes is a long time to be in an apartment, to get rid of stuff, to come up with ideas.
Oh, absolutely. You know what's so funny? You take the hardest perps. They reach out to their mommies more often than people would ever get. I've seen hardened men who want their mommy. I'm like, what?
Dude.
Bro, number 1, you're crying. Number 2, you're asking for your mom.
When I came on, we had 6 projects in our city, like legit, you know, 2-story projects, all not just houses, but projects. And they've since torn them all down and done diversified housing, which has been horrible, and scattered crime all over the city, made it worse. But I remember those projects were great for investigators, because anytime a crime was committed and you needed somebody, you just waited long enough. They went back to mamas in the projects. They always went home to mama. It was unreal. Yeah, when you talk about that, that's a real thing, man. It's funny how that works.
It really is. I'd be like, you were just talking about whooping my ass, and now you're crying for your mommy. Are you kidding me, bro? At least act like you're hard. It was the funniest thing. It really was. But, you know, moms are saviors a lot of times, unfortunately.
That's it.
Or fortunately. So, like, what is, as you're going through this, how is your psyche, your mental health? You know, I can't imagine the fear that you're having for your family and your loved ones and everything.
Yeah, so probably the first year, I was on such code red, on high alert the entire time. So I'm naturally an emotional guy. Like, I'll easily cry in a sappy movie. Just me, you know. Call me sissy if you want, whatever. We can fight about it later. But no, seriously, my kids used to laugh at me all the time. So I'm used to it. It's whatever. It's just the way I'm built.
No, men should be expressing their feelings. It's one thing that my healing journey has showed me, because I was so stoic my whole life, growing up with a stern father, and showing emotion is actually strength. It's not a sign of weakness, and we need to release that stigma. So, I applaud you for doing so.
Yeah, I still hated crying in front of anybody. I still hated it. But it took me a year, and I realized I haven't shed a tear in a year, which is not like me. even in my alone time, if I'm thinking about my kids, if I'm praying or whatever, those tears will flow, but they
Yep.
just didn't. It dried up because my brain was on such watching out for my kids and my family and their safety and their
Just the
security.
hypervigilance.
Oh man, it'll kill you after a while, man.
Yeah.
It wore me down. But for probably a year, when things were so touch and go and the threats and all the unknowns were worse than the knowns, as far as the threats and stuff go. But
Can
car
imagine.
pull up beside you, somebody you don't know call you, you're somewhere and somebody knocks on the door when they're not expecting anybody, or somebody slow rolls by your house. All these things are instant fight or flight mode, right?
Yeah.
And so that cortisol levels stayed high for a year. All that stuff was tough. And I remember, so I went from the city my entire life, about 1 million people, being a cop 21 years of those. So as well as I do, everywhere you go, it's 100 miles an hour. Everything's go, 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 busy, busy, busy. We moved to this small county that is, the winding roads, the one-lane roads.
Yep.
The Amish are here, so sometimes you're waiting on horses,
Really?
tractors are in the roads.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't realize, my wife pointed it out to me, that I have nowhere to be at this time of my life, right? I'm in like this dead zone. So I went from 100 miles an hour, 60, 70 hours a week to nothing. That was tough by itself, number one.
Oh, yeah.
And you go from your friends all the time at work and talking and hanging out and doing all these things to nothing, you and your family. Now it's you and your spouse and your kid 24/7. That takes adjustment too. But we're behind these cars, and say the speed limit's 45, and this little lady's going 35 in front of me, and you can't get around them because you're on these winding roads. Man, I'm white knuckling it on my steering wheel. I'm getting mad, and I'm saying stuff out loud that half the time I don't even realize I'm saying. Like, you got to be kidding me, not this again. Stuff like that. Finally, one day we stop at a stop sign. My wife looks at me and she goes, "Man, why are you so angry?" I'm like, "I'm not angry. I'm not mad at you. And I'm fine. I'm not." She knows you're always angry when we get behind somebody slow, when somebody does something you don't think they should do, when, whatever. And it clicked. I'm like, yeah, I am. It took that realization. Then that's when I finally started, all right, well, let's go talk to somebody, and start talking to a counselor. And fortunately, and those counselors have to be somebody you trust. Like you said, somebody's been through it. This guy had been in the military, and he does military and police. So that helped, because I thought, okay, this guy's at least seen some action. He knows a little bit about what's going on.
Absolutely.
So yeah, we started that, and that helped a lot, because I was never a talk to somebody guy. I was always like, guy's a pussy if he does that,
Yeah.
We don't need it. We help people. We don't need help. One of those deals.
Absolutely.
So that kind of took me down that road of realizing that I had to at least talk to somebody or get some ways to deal with this, because the traditional just boxing it up wasn't working.
Yeah, it doesn't. And, it's a huge thing that we must realize. We take in, and what we're talking about here with your situation is times 100, but just decompressing and getting it off of our chest is huge. It's not normal what we see on a daily basis, and it's burned into our psyches, and we don't realize that we all have a saturation point, and eventually, this, we call it compartmentalizing. It's essentially burying, and eventually you bury, but that saturation point is reached, and when it does, man, it's going to come out, and it's coming out in unhealthy ways. Substance abuse. Unfortunately, see guys, domestic abuse. There were just so many things. Drinking, isolation. We've both seen it, and everyone that's watching this has heard of it. People are going through it now. And we really must give ourselves grace. I think it's one huge thing. Give ourselves forgiveness. What we do takes so much out of us, and we do it for very noble reasons. We want to help people. There's very few guys that I've met over my career that are doing this for the wrong reason. Some people just take it for a job, but most people actually really, truly care about people, want to help them, and you must give yourself grace, man, because what you've gone through has to be dealt with at some point, and we don't do it. We think it's weakness. It's actually strength. I had a training this past April, and I was with DJ Shipperley. He's a former Navy SEAL Team 6 guy, and we both healed through plant-based journeys. He was Ibogaine, I was ayahuasca. But we were talking about how we were feeling prior to, and we were angry men, and we were not proud of ourselves, and we went through these healing journeys using this medicine, And at one point I told him, I'm like, I don't care what uniform you wear. You're one of the hardest hardened warriors in the world, but you're a human being first.
Right.
All of us. And we're not meant to not feel things, man. We callous up so much because we can't absorb that pain. But we're humans, man. We are meant to feel. And I said, DJ, after my ayahuasca, man, I feel again, and I love it. I'm like, I'm proud of the man I am, and he's the same thing. And we really need to preach that, especially these alpha males, as we talk to these men, more men than women, that they're much more in touch with their feelings than we are. But guys like us need to talk to these guys and tell them. Obviously, you do. You're in the national speaking circuit, but it's the suicide thing is an epidemic and it's real, and there's a reason for it, and that's one of the things because we do not talk. We isolate. We hold these things inside. We think no one's going to understand. But you know what? There's a ton of you and there's a ton of me that guys can speak to. We've been through it. Come to us.
Right.
And for people that have relatives that are going through it, you got to realize, like, if you're talking to someone and I say, "What's up, John? How you doing, brother?" And you're like, "I'm all right." John is not all right. John wants to tell me what's going on. If he was all right or he didn't want to talk to me, he would have been like, "I'm cool, brother. Cool."
That's the female version of "I'm fine."
Yeah,
Honey, you
exactly.
okay? I'm fine. Oh, you ain't fine. We're gonna get my head ripped off or something. What
Yeah,
did I do?
exactly. I didn't realize what I did, but please tell me, baby.
Yeah, I'm sorry for whatever it was. Just don't
Exactly.
be fine anymore. Be good.
Yeah.
Great.
Preemptive apology. I don't know what I did, but I'm sorry for it. Now please tell me. But we need to reach out, and for people that are observing your friends or family going through it, don't think that you are being nosy. If you sense something's going on, you have that intuition. So I guarantee you something's going on with that man or woman. And trust me, I know it's not an easy question. Maybe for me or John, because we've had to do it on duty. Ask someone, are you going to hurt yourself? Are you thinking about killing yourself? It is not an easy question to ask. For us, myself and John, we've asked plenty of people on the street. We've had to, but you will regret forever not asking that question when you think there's something wrong with someone. God forbid they do something to themselves.
And that being such a pointed question, we're not used to being asked that. So
Yeah.
you'll be able to, we're human lie detectors after being cops for so long, right?
Absolutely.
You can see in somebody's face when they're caught off guard by a question and they're having to formulate something in their mind. Okay, you already told me the answer. You don't even have to talk. I know the answer, so let's get help. Because, that's just the way it is. And, there's a couple of things to that. I'm not big on, and everybody's different, so maybe it's just different human beings. I don't want to sit here. I'll talk to a therapist about whatever I'm feeling or what I need help with, but I don't want to come back 30 times and talk about the same thing over and over and over, because I feel like then I'm validating that in my head of, I don't feel good. Oh, I'm depressed. I'm angry. Okay, I'm angry. Help me figure out how to fix this so I'm not punching holes in walls or, cussing out strangers for no reason, looking for a fight. 'Cause there are times, after this career, we had adrenaline to the point where most normal people's adrenaline didn't even get your clock ticking. It wouldn't even get you out of bed. I remember going through doors by the end of my career you're busting down, going in strangers' doors, not knowing what's on the other side and feeling nothing.
Yeah.
Didn't get that heart race in your neck. Didn't get that, here we go. It just got so mundane and over. You're like, okay, here we go again. Let's knock this one out. Sweet. Where are we eating after this? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that's a bad place to be. Number one, you gotta check that and re-regulate it. That's part of it. I don't want to rehash over and over. I want to deal with it, find a cure or find a fix or some way that I can start improving, and then check up on my updates on where I'm at. But don't let me swallow in this part of my life. I don't want to live here. That's the whole reason I'm talking about it. But therapy nowadays, half of them, not all of them, there's a lot of them that will just keep you coming back for that next visit. They just want you to be a lifetime patient. And I don't think we need to be lifetime patients, personally. I think we need to fix the problem and then go help others. And by helping others, you need a lot less visiting to that person, because it's so therapeutic being able to help somebody else through it. And you learn a lot from other people.
Absolutely.
Stuff that you don't even know you needed or thought about when you're talking to somebody else about their problems. And they say something, you go, oh, that's me.
Yeah.
Then you're like, well, how'd you get past that one? And they tell you to go, okay, that's cool. That's great. But I also think, you talked about the spousal abuse in policing and the drug abuse and the different things. I think some of that too goes back to what we do as humans is all learned behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
From the time we're small. And so these people that live in these dramatic lifestyles, or these um, kind of like, we've all dated women or girls that they thrived off of drama,
Yeah.
right? That was kind of their stick. They drama, drama, drama. A
Yep.
lot of places we go to in policing, what happens? We're showing up and it's drama based. We're getting called on domestics, on drunk people, on out of control kids, on all these issues that are drama, drama, drama all day long. And so we're doing that 8-10 hours a day. Well, guess what? We're getting a little bit programmed too. We're used to going in and coming in and going, hey, stop doing that. And if they don't stop, what were we trying to do? Make them. You ask, tell, make, right? And what do? We take that home with us. Now all of a sudden we're interrogating our kids in a way that normal parents don't interrogate their kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
We go in that police mode. Boom, 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 boom. You tell your wife something, or whoever, your dog ain't doing something you tell them to do, so you make him, you kick them. We start taking on these personalities, or this attitude of what we're doing for it, because you become the people you hang around and the things you put in your brain, right? Everything we put in is what we're putting out. And if you're putting that in for 8 or 10 hours a day, even if you are being the gatekeeper and the one helping people, you're still absorbing that.
Absolutely.
So it's going to go somewhere. And if we don't have healthy outlets for it, then we turn around and we regurgitate that into our personal life. And then we're as screwed up as the people we're making runs on.
Yeah. No, it's the truth. I mean, I tell people, especially in Atlanta, I was an ultra-violent city to police, and I was very comfortable in that violence. I mean, I was an animal at times, and not to do anything crazy. It was like I was beating up handcuffed guys or anything like that, but you have to ring that bell when it is called, man, because when you're in that street, you have a reputation, and it's either good and they're going to kind of respect you, or it's bad and they're going to eat you alive. But you have to answer that bell over and over, because there's going to be guys that test you over and over and
It's
over
savage.
and over. Yeah, it really is. That's one thing in the hood. There's not too much anger management or discourse when they have problems. Everything is settled with violence.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's how, in the ghetto, it's the way the kids are raised.
Yep.
And
Well, they have to survive half the time. I remember this. So I grew up in this poor neighborhood, right? And I saw a lot of crazy stuff, kids barefoot and all that stuff my whole life. Extension cords running from one house to the other to run their electric, people turning water on. We had to do it before. But I remember I was in the projects. I'd been on like a year. It's like 3:30 in the morning. And I look over and I see this like 1.5, maybe 2-year-old kid, nothing but a diaper on. And it's so full, it's sagged down to their knees, nothing else on. No adults around, because they're over here pitching dice and these people are playing their music and they're sitting on cars out here. And I look over at this kid and I think, he ain't got a chance. There's not much hope for this kid. This is his programming at 2 years old is 3 in the morning, watching drug deals go down, dice getting pitched, people cussing out fights, police rolling through. He's already numbed all this stuff.
Oh, yeah. I used to call them FFLs, fuck for life.
Yeah.
At that age, I mean, you walk through the hood, the 3-year-old, like, fuck the police. Like, what? This is like Bizarro World.
Yeah.
But unfortunately,
it's society we're in.
Yeah. That's it's reality in many places. And, we wonder, why the violence doesn't end. And, unfortunately, no one really, and this is one thing that I have a problem with. People always talk about, they want to talk about the race issue. All right, if you want to talk about it, let's start with one fact: is a 75% out of wedlock birth rate for black females. There's no men raising these kids to show them how to become a man. They're in the streets. That's who's raising them. A lot of times, unfortunately, and there's a lot of good kids out there, man. But unfortunately, I don't know how many times I ran into little kids getting bullied and beat up, and I mean really beat up, because they were too white, or they spoke too well, or they did too well in school. It's not encouraged to better yourself, unfortunately, but that's never spoken about, and it really needs to be. And one thing, these social welfare programs do not need to be rewarding people for having 4, 5, 6 kids. Listen, 2 kids, you get what you get for your check, and that's it. There's no more subsidies past that. And I think that would eradicate a lot of these, women having 5 baby daddies, unfortunately. Yeah. And it's reality. We're just talking reality. This is not racist. This is society.
What we lived.
Yeah,
I mean, it is.
literally lived it.
Because, you can have all the stats you want and they can manipulate all those ones, but that real life, living it, feeling it, breathing it, seeing it brings a whole different perspective. And that's the problem with a lot of policing, I think, is perspective, right?
Yeah.
You've got what, 2/3 of society that's never seen the underbelly like we've seen. They see it on TV, but number one, the stuff they see on TV, we can't watch cop shows because you go, oh my gosh, it's so far from the truth. Number one, plus everything you watch, there's always a dirty cop on TV, and so now everybody in the world thinks every cop's a dirty cop, and they've so manipulated the American people. But all the underbelly stuff we saw that you would tell people, and they'd be like, that really goes on? And I'm like, all the time. It doesn't stop. Just because you have a good life out here with your barbecue and throwing your cornhole with your buddies on the weekend, that's not happening in the hood, man. That's not happening in the poor ends of town. It's just not. They're shooting guns. They're trying to not get robbed. I remember I would always see these kids walking in the middle of the street at night. You pull up in your car, police car, Mark come behind or your Mark car or whatever, and they'd have to get out of the way. Finally, one day I was like, man, why do y'all walk in the middle of the street all the time? And they said, so we can see the shadows of people come up around us because the lights are facing out here and we don't want to get robbed. And I went, oh, all the years I've been on the street, and that never occurred to me.
Yeah,
ever.
Self-preservation. Yeah.
So as much as I saw growing up, as much as I've done as policing, I'm still not living that life to understand all the nuances that they have to go through. Because, we talked about me being on Code Red for a year. Their life is Code Red.
Exactly.
It's survival of the fittest, man. If you're not on guard, you're getting robbed or killed or stomped or something.
Yeah.
So we can try to feel for them, but man, we don't live that life either. Just like we say, people don't understand us because we don't live our life. So there's a lot of perspective things that need to be changed where I can see where they're coming from, where they can see where police are coming from. And if we could just come together as humans and realize that, and that we all kind of have the same goals. We want to be left alone by the government. We want to have the same opportunities to succeed. We want to have a secure environment. Man, we're a lot more alike than we are different. But it's just hammered into us to be different.
Yeah, unfortunately. And, I would tell these kids, like, I'm here to make your neighborhood safer. Unfortunately, it's not a lot of times, but I'm willing to sacrifice my life for perfect strangers to make your your neighborhood a safer place to live. And, unfortunately, we're not looked at like that. We're looked at as like an occupying army sometimes. And, I think it's a media that perpetuates a lot of this stuff, and these kids pick up on it too. It's going to take a long time for it to ever correct itself, but, there's a lot of ills in society, that's for sure. So, let's get back to you. So you're going through, you spoke to the therapist. Hopefully that's working well for you. And just kind of talk us, through, how it's progressing at this point, the case and everything.
Well, the case itself on me finally, after 6 months, the state cleared me.
Okay.
And then after about, I think it was 2 years, the feds finally cleared me. So having that stuff hanging over your head for a long time sucks.
2 years. Wow.
Never knowing when if or when the hammer's going to drop.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, Brett, who was the third guy that shot that night, so I was the first one to shoot. When I went down, Miles kind of stepped up over me and shot down the hall. Well, Brett was the third one coming up behind us. He saw the flash from the inside. He saw me return shots. He couldn't get up to the door because you can't have three guys up on a doorway, right? Somebody's going to shoot somebody.
Yeah.
So he said at that point, he kind of retreated and button hooked around the front. He heard me say I've been shot. And then all he heard was rapid gunfire, which turned out to be Miles shooting into the apartment. But when you're on the other side and all you're hearing is all the echo from the metal and the concrete and in that little breezeway area, just boom, 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 boom. He thought we were getting executed at that doorway. And he said, I had to do something because I asked him after about 2 months after the event, I met with him and tell me why you shot through those windows. Cause I was curious. I'm like, we're not trained to do that. Why did you do that? He said, I thought you were getting executed at the doorway and you and Miles. He said, so I just was putting bullets in the windows where I thought last place I saw him to get him to quit shooting. Now, his bullets didn't hit anybody. They didn't hurt anybody, but he's the only one charged in this case on scene. He went through state trial, got acquitted. As they're celebrating the acquittal in state trial, two FBI agents walked behind him, tapped him on the shoulder and said, this ain't over yet, walk out. They go and they have several grand juries before they can get one to indict, which I didn't know you could shop grand juries. I had no idea because on
Yeah,
state,
did I?
it
I
was
thought it
state
was
level.
no
we don't
bill.
do
That was it.
Yeah, no, it's different feds. Evidently.
Wow.
They finally got a grand jury months later to indict. We went through the first trial, and it was a hung jury, 10 to acquit, 2 for guilty. They retried him again. Now the dude's on his third trial for this. This time they come back. The jury's deadlocked, can't do anything. The judge gives them the command to go back. They come back again, deadlocked, send them back again, come back out. And this is on a Friday night at like 9 o'clock. They've been in trial 2 weeks. They've been deadlocked for a couple of days or something like that. They come in and she goes, okay, they had charged him with civil rights violation on Breonna and Kenny in their apartment. And then where Brett's bullets went through their apartment into the neighboring apartment, they charged him with 3 counts of civil rights violation because it was 2 adults and a baby on those people. Yeah. Now, civil rights violation, if you get found guilty, you can go to prison for life. And this is on a guy who hurt no one, right? This is the same kind of stuff we dealt with on the street all day where people are riding by, shooting at houses, shooting at cars, shooting at whatever. In parks, same scenario. Yeah. Except he had a purpose behind his, not just wanting to kill somebody.
Yep.
And she sends them back again. They come out. They said, we can't do it. She said, can you find a guilty verdict on either one, either the one in Breonna's apartment or a verdict, not guilty, a verdict on either the one in Breonna's apartment or the other apartment. They said, yes, we can do it for the neighbor's apartment. Not guilty. And I'm thinking, okay, that's good. They can't come to a conclusion on the other one. They're saying not guilty on the people who are alive.
Yeah.
Because Kenny had pulled out. He quit cooperating with the feds, so they pulled him out of the indictment on her apartment. So now it's just her left, right? She had passed away, unfortunately. So you can't really violate someone's civil rights who's dead because she'd already been shot before Brett got around there and started shooting. She was already down.
Gotcha.
So they come back, and again, they say, well, we can't come to a conclusion. She says, do it again, whatever that rule's called that they send them back.
Yep.
They come back out. 4 of the jurors are crying and guilty.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, how is it not guilty on the people who are alive, but guilty on the dead person?
Yeah.
How's it guilty anyway? Period. For civil rights violation. That's saying you wouldn't let them leave their house. Well, she was incapacitated. She had no ability to leave. His actions did nothing to that.
Yep.
So now they're looking at sentencing. Originally, the judge set the sentencing up for March 12th, 2025, which would have been the 5-year anniversary of the brief, the night that we, briefed for this. And her mom got on TV that next day and said, "Oh, good. Finally, some justice is served. He'll go in prison on the 12th and wake up on the 13th, just like my daughter when she died." And so they bumped that back now to April. But hopefully, since this is a federal case, we can get some word to Trump and he can, pardon this deal. And because it's ridiculous. It's all corrupt. It's all political based. It has nothing to do with the law, the letter of the law. So that's where we're at.
That's where a pardon was designed for, something like this. Right. It's such an egregious act. I mean, it's amazing it's gone this far. It really is. Like,
what amazes me, you worked in Atlanta, or was it the cops in Atlanta, those 5 guys that beat up that guy and killed him? It was, wasn't it? Yeah.
I'm trying to think of.
You know what I'm talking about?
That was Memphis.
Memphis, that's right, Memphis. Mm-hmm. This case got more publicity than that did, and that was egregious. That's a criminal act on purpose. I'm going to hold you while one guy punches him. Now you're going to hold him while I punch him until the dude's dead. But because it was black on black, you just don't hear about it.
Yeah, exactly.
It kind of went away.
That was an incredible case. I couldn't believe those guys. When it first came out, I'm like, there's going to be riots, this and that. Not one riot. It basically, was played for a few nights on national TV, disappeared. And, what's it say as a society about us? Like, that disappears just because they're black and he's black.
Yeah. Because
there's no sensationalism.
And I'll tell you what, Michael, the more we go down this road of alienating police, charging police for stuff that we trained them to do, equipped them to do, sent them to do, and it's still within the law, but because these prosecutors are out of control, the more we do that and chase off good cops, in 10, 15 years, we're going to be looking at guys like that policing all of our cities. Yep. We're all going to be in danger. I don't care who you are. I don't want those guys stopping me.
No.
You say one wrong thing to piss them off and you're beat to death.
Yeah.
So yeah, you talk about hyperbole. That's a real life thing that just happened that we've got in front of us. We don't have to make that up. That's the direction we're going.
Yeah, there's a price to pay for all this defunding of the police, for this hypervigilance on every action that's committed by a police officer. Eventually, no one's going to apply. Who wants to deal with this? Who wants to go viral? Especially if you did everything right.
Yeah.
You have to worry about you, your family. Who wants the nation to know who you are? No one.
Right.
And then they're talking about not providing qualified immunity to guys now in some states and personally responsible for lawsuits. Listen, if you're doing something that is so outrageous and negligent, I have no problem with
that. Doesn't fall under qualified immunity anyway. That's what people don't understand.
Exactly.
If you're on purpose breaking the law, that disqualifies you from qualified immunity.
Exactly.
That's never explained. Again, that's just why these politicians don't get up there and wave the flag and go, "Nope, you're misrepresenting this. This is not the way this happens. This is what we pay on."
Yeah.
People that are doing it in good faith, thinking they're abiding by the law, when things go bad, people get paid. That's all it is.
Absolutely. So what's going on with you today now? I know you're, going around the nation speaking. You wrote that book.
Wrote book 12 Seconds in the Dark. Get on my website on johnmattingly.com or Amazon. But yeah, so I wrote the book, travel country. Just got back from California last week at their narcotics conference, and just being able to help younger officers in this field, or even older guys. Nobody's immune to it. So just give them some hope. That you can get railroaded, you can get thrown under the bus, you can get the people hating you, but you know what? Life goes on. So you should too. And just keep trucking, because things do get better.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most positive message here after what you went through, especially you came out. Listen, you could have come out of this the most ornery guy, hating everyone, but you didn't. You took a positive viewpoint.
Not let them beat me.
Yeah,
That's
exactly, which I love,
That's
bro.
them winning, man. I want my life. I want to have some control. God's in the ultimate control, but I want to have physical control on decision making and deciding. I'm not going to let you control my emotions. I'm not going to let you control my destiny. I'm just going to push forward, and whatever doors He opens, I'll go through them. Other than that, I don't care what you think of me.
Yeah, I love that, because people don't realize, if you take the other route, that negativity the rest of your life, you're giving the power to them, so to speak. You took the power back. You have the power, and no one's got control of you. And that's the most powerful message that I take from the story, is you hold that power. You gave it to no one else.
Yep. Don't plan on it either.
Yeah, exactly. It's an incredible story. So, John, how can people get in touch with you if they want you to speak? If they want to reach out and just talk to you about anything?
Just johnmattingly.com. It's JohnMattingly.com. You can order the book there. You can schedule speak. You can email me. My number's on there. If somebody needs some help, they need some guidance, they need somebody just to go, "Hey, you're an idiot," I'm the guy. So now you can reach out to me, and I'm not the most tech savvy guy, but I'll do what I can to get back to you and help you out.
Excellent. And a link is going to be in the bio. All of John's links will be in the bio, so you guys will see them. Brother, I thank you so much for appearing. It was unbelievable speaking to you once again. The first time I heard your story, I couldn't believe it. And I didn't touch base on the fact that John's police chief at Louisville Police Department became Erica Shields. She and I were street cops together in Atlanta. She rose through the ranks, became a chief. But I actually got very disgusted when I saw her doing an interview, and she said an incident like John's does not occur in a white neighborhood, and that blew me away. These gentlemen did nothing wrong. They followed all the rules. They were fired upon. I don't know what she would have expected you guys to do differently. I have a feeling she was in.
According to her, this was a case of white reckoning. Because we wouldn't do it in a black neighborhood. And I was like, man, did she take like 2 seconds to look into this case? Because Breonna's apartment wasn't even in a black neighborhood. That was, you're an idiot. I mean, she's just total idiot on this subject. I don't know if that was willful or just, jumping in line with the mayor that hired her. I have no idea. But yeah, she took the wrong stance on that one. She took the wrong stance in Atlanta before she left, and those guys all got their jobs back and back pay because she defamed them. She said stuff about them, fired them. So she just But she was the perfect candidate for the DOJ after screwing up 2 police departments, so they took her. It was, good fit.
Yeah, and she, for transparency's sake, one of my really good friends who I worked with in Zone 3 in Atlanta for a while was caught up in that. He got fired. And then another guy that I work with in Zone 3, great guy, who she worked with also. I forgot if they were in the academy together, but they ended up getting their jobs back, of course, and because it was another miscarriage of justice. But so much for standing up for your man and doing the right thing. It blew me away in both instances, the way she handled herself. And frankly, it's an embarrassment. And Erica, if you see this, I just think it's an embarrassment the way you're handling yourself. And these gentlemen put their lives on the line for a noble purpose. And all they want is backing. No one's looking for, accommodations, adulations. Just back them when they need it. That's all we're looking for.
You don't have to cover up my deeds. Just
exactly.
When I do the right thing, have my back, period.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. All right, brother. So thank you again. Guys, if you like this, please hit the like and subscribe button. Feels so weird saying that. But guys, take care. We will see you soon. John, thank you again.